So this evening I just like to bring to mind the nature of Citta. One aspect of the Citta heart is it's resonant. It's an energy form, subtle energy form. It has a subtle energy form. It trembles, shimmers, pulses, surges, jumps, as you probably recognized. Yeah. When it jumps, it intends, it jumps out to make something happen, touch something, hear something, get something, push something away. So it does this. So that's its kind of called volition, cetana, volition, intention, does this. And that's tiring and disturbing, just to have a jumpy citta. So much of what we practice is a calming. But the calming isn't to just stifle it, is to restore something more subtly resonant and suffusive. Because it's within this domain, the textures, the weave of those energies, which can be quite complex and ricocheting and reacting, emotional conflicts, cross currents of different emotions and passions and fears and agitations and hopes and wondering what other people might want or do or say or think, should be, could be. More or less, you get this incredible kind of ricochet effect that citta is just sometimes so flooded with that a thing kind of locks down, shuts down. It can't really keep processing any more of these surges. So it's like somebody get lightning strikes electric, it blows the fuses. Too much surge. So sometimes with computers, you have surge breakers to stop too much charge going into the computer. And unfortunately, we don't have surge breakers on the citta. So it surges, it just rocks around and capsizes and often reacts, and it's all those reactions surge around and so on. This is the aim then of the sense restraint, calming, and also in more positive sense, generating resonances that have a steadying effect. We live in a resonant domain. So we live in a resonant domain. What does that mean? It means you allow, if you live with some sense restraint and morality, there's a possibility to be a bit more sensitive. Because these qualities, morality, restraint, morality particularly, is perhaps the initiating opening of citta. When it opens. And what causes it to open is faith, another resonant quality. It's not a piece of logic. It's something, it touches me, I'm interested. It's not a belief, it's not a clamped on, I got this is absolutely true and right. And it's a sense of, that's interesting. I'm touched, my citta rises. It's touched. And it begins to rise perhaps into qualities either of conscience and concern and loving kindness. These are two aspects of the same thing. Morality is it's a flip coin. Whichever you put on top, underneath it should have the other one. Metta should have a sense of respect for the welfare of others, concern for their being harmed, and concern for yourself being harmed. If you have a morality without metta, is just law and order, and tends to be moralizing, lacking compassion, lacking resonance, becomes hard-edged. Unfortunately, this is sometimes how Morality is framed, thou shalt not, cast iron, stone, held by fear. But instead, proper way of told it is not fear but value. Not held by fear but by value, because I see value in you. I don't want to tarnish that, because I see value. Creatures have innate value. They're valued because they're alive. They're sentient. That's their value. They are what they are. Therefore, I don't desecrate them. And this is the beginning of relational wholesomeness, which we include all sentient creatures in that quality, because they too sense fear death, feel pain, and a sense of, and we all belong on this embodied plane. And belonging, real belonging, is its value. Otherwise, you're just a visitor here if you have no value. So this, you see what I mean? Just flitting by, a worthless world, a worthless being doesn't mean very much. In a world, it doesn't mean very much anyway. That's not the kind of skillful belonging, participation in a cosmos that's alive. And this is certainly the fundamental position of these early teachings. Cosmos was, in those days, you was not just humans and animals, you've got also all kinds of, what we call supernatural beings, spirits, and, beings without physical bodies. Why not? We've got emails. So, and you think, well, it's all silly. Well, I don't know. Maybe they didn't have, pointy ears and pixie hats, but just sensing that there's energies. They explain in this way: as energies, energetic forms can be benevolent, are responsive, and devas they always respond well to morality and kindness and generosity. And this is there's their food. So the wholesomeness supports even this kind of supernatural. And it's in the sutras, it says, if the devas are not, if human beings get wicked and depraved, the devas get unhappy, then the weather goes funny. The weather goes funny, you get rain, you get drought, you get, you think, crazy. Well, look what happened. That's what we got. So just because you couldn't see it with some gadget doesn't mean it's there. It is the arrogance of mechanistic science, whereas Buddhism is a science, a different kind of science of CITTA, science of the cosmos. It's not mechanistic. It's not device-oriented. It's sensitivities, and you can do the scientific method, which is if you run a few tests and you get consistent results, you think, okay, it worked. That's a reasonable proposition, and it's probably much more reasonable proposition to get the sense that the cosmos is intelligent than it's all just dead lumps of rock flying around for no purpose. Because that one doesn't work. They try to find out what's the ultimate building brick of the universe. They can't find one because there isn't one. There aren't any rocks. It's just energy. Even the material universe is just energy in different ranges and wavelengths. Some are extremely tight, that we call matter. Some are extremely loose, we call light. But it's all energies. Yeah. Our minds still hold rocks in them, though. We're still attuned to rockness. We want to be something to be really solid, because the CITTA hasn't really dwelt in its own truth. We've adopted models of external facts, external matter being stable, positions, dogmas, nationalities. This is this, I am that, that's that, fact kind of thing. On all levels, we've tended to believe in the material world as the source of our happiness. We tended to believe in philosophies and ideologies as the source of our security. And what's the result? Conflict. Different hard edges, hard forces crashing into each other, nations clashing, people clashing, the earth being crushed through these non-resonant, non-sympathetic energies of delusion. Because the uninstructed citta has become deluded, doesn't know its own nature. And that which is the most proximate piece of the universe, your own citta, has not been studied. We've studied the moons of Pluto. We haven't studied our own citta properly. This is the science of Buddhism, to do this. And you find there's nothing solid there. It's all resonances and shifting thoughts and feelings, shifting. And this is not just an interesting curiosity, but it puts us in touch with the right, being rightly tuned, rightly tuned in, and process of relationship. You're listening to the resonances, how they're affecting, what kind of energies move out from your citta. When does it get shocked? When does it get sunk? When does it get clamped? And how can we relieve ourselves of this? And make no mistake, this is what the Eightfold Path was about. And how was that introduced? Buddha walked to Deer Park near Varanasi. His 5 former colleagues saw him. He's come back. Dropped out of ascetic university and went soft on milk rice. Flunked out. I noticed he's strangely radiant. What's that? He just kept walking towards them. And he felt himself so moved. And he just found himself getting up and making a place for him to sit and listening. The Buddha's presence touched them. Even though they're in their heads, they thought, him. Still, almost in spite of their opinions and views, they found themselves touched and moved. And what did he say? Listen, the deathless is found. The doors, the deathless are open. Bring forth your faith. The doors, the deathless are open. For those who can listen, bring forth your faith. Right? What's that do? Well, how does that affect you? What am I supposed to do? Where's this? I can't see any door. Where's this faith stuff? Am I going to get that and bring it out? No. It's the wrong system. This is rationalism. This is not I do something. It's just let yourself be touched and feel that lifting. You don't do it from some kind of doing mind. You let it happen. Let yourself be touched, moved by it. This is, and also I can instruct you. If you follow this way, in no time, you'll realize the goal. This can be taught. avoiding the two extremes, the positioning for and against sensuality. Avoid that. Let's not get clamped onto the sense realm or start fighting it. Just armistice, Just leave it, step back and tune in to your citta. Don't have some ideological position regarding, the sense contact and so forth. Just tune into your citta. And this is the tuned in path, samma. Samma, right view and so forth. It's a curious word because as soon as we say samma right, then immediately people get this feeling, oh, righteous, right, wrong, dualistic. But actually the word samma means something like fulfilled or complete. And it may be, knowing the Buddha's use of language, that he's subtly resonating with the word for tuned. Tuned in view, a view that's tuned in to the nature of the cosmos. And a speech is tuned in to what's harmonious. Relationships that are tuned in to what's for my welfare, what's your welfare. Tuning in, well tuned. Make your mind well tuned. Because that's the nature of it. It's a resonant experience, citta. Tuned in mindfulness. I'm not saying this is this is just playful, if you like, just being slightly poetic. But okay, how do you hold a tune? How do you hold a tune? It's not like holding a rock, is it? You kind of, if you're singing with a group in a choir, how do you hold the same tune? You listen. You listen, you feel your energies, your breath, your chest, your throat, sound, you're resonating, right? And you sustain that. Because you're listening to the tune. You're not drifting off on your own, you're listening. See, could it be that you could meditate like that? Could it be that your mindfulness could be that kind of quality that keeps the theme in mind and is constantly referring, resonating off it? Could that be the case? Is it worth checking it out? Scientific method. Try a few times, not going to kill you. See what happens. That's what we do. It's all, feel your way is the way. This isn't a set of rules and laws. It's all, and that's beautiful. There's experimentation. It means you bring your initiative, your faith, your energy. And here, energy is not just some kind of grim slog. It means where your mind picks up and wants to go. It's inspired. And to me, isn't it more inspiring to sense I'm holding something that requires a subtle balance. And if I get too tight, I drop it. If I get too loose, I drop it. If I don't listen steadily, I drift off. It's going to be testing me, but it seems a good test. Because if that's the case, if I'm mindful of body, feeling, and I drift off, I start thinking about them, rather than actually holding them, then I've gone out of tune. It's like you're singing a song, you're trying to remember whether you should be in C sharp or arpeggios, or whether, no, it's not going to work, is it? Right? trying to figure out what it's supposed to mean on paper. I mean, those things are useful, but eventually you've got to get the sound established, listen to the sound, whatever else is doing, and tune in. Hold the tune. And what we actually are mindful of itself, as you relate to it in a way, you begin to experience body as a resonant experience rather than a kind of lump of meat that clunks around, and scratches and itches and, and does things, which is what it kind of looks like. And we're sort of led to believe that's what it is. And maybe you could kind of buff it up a bit and preen it and it'll be sort of okay. But we know what's going to happen to it. That, right? That's the death. That's the dying one. Yeah. Is it possible to actually hold direct body, that which you can tune into, which is a sense of radiances, energies, ripples of sensation, sometimes not very comfortable. And then within that, you might find something that's a very agreeable resonance, which is breathing in and out. Pulse, long, slow pulse, and be with that. Tune into that. So that you're getting feedback. In other words, your resonance is picking up the resonance of something else, and the two begin to bond. They entrain. Could that be what we mean by samadhi? Yeah. So the citta is not running off somewhere else and wondering how to do it and how to get it right and how many breaths should I count before I get to this stage, and is this going to give me insight, or is this too much samatha, or should I be focusing on my chest, or is this, like feel an out breath. Can you feel it? No. Maybe, the kind of amount of shock and pressure that people can be living under and experiencing, maybe they can't. It's the system is kind of clamped up. So then we thought, let's just practice chanting. Chanting. Waste my time chanting. Well, what's for? Because it's an embodied experience. It runs through your body. It comes through your throat vibrates. You hear the sound. If you're chanting with a group of people, you can tune into them. I mean, it's not, it's not going to save the world. Maybe it would save the world if we all chanted together every day. Maybe it would drop our boundaries and our aggression, and then we feel a bit of harmony. You get the resonances. You feel the body resonates with the sound. It's different from talking. But notice also, that just recollect that all the Buddha's teachings were verbal, not a single thing written down. Because once you've gone to transmission through written, however useful that is in long term, you've lost resonance. You've lost two people listening to each other. You've lost that interplay. You've transferred, what occurs when meaning arises and the other person gets it, and there's that feedback and that feeling of, oh yeah, right. Oh. You've lost that, and you've just got, there are 7 of these and 8 of these, and you should do this and you should do that, and practice in that, and then. And you say, look at this piece of paper. Paper doesn't care for you. It doesn't care whether you like it or not. It's not interested in what you feel about it. It's just a piece of paper with some squiggles on it. And you think, I don't like the font on this one. But you can imagine being in the presence of someone like the Buddha and him giving you the eye, looking at you, And the kind of qualities that would come from that presence, steady, cool comprehension. And the Buddha says, I encompass people's minds with my mind. This citta expands, moves out, takes the person in. Right. And then the sound of the voice striking. Is it so? That's how it happened. They said, you don't want to write these things down because it's not respectful. There was writing in the time of the Buddha, but they didn't write teachings down because it's a bit like, that's for business and that's for kind of, shopping lists. You don't give religious teachings on paper or parchment. You talk them because they're going to go through the human body and you feel the resonance of it. This is not a one-off. I remember when last time I was in South Africa, a woman telling me that when the Dalai Lama was there, and some young men, young men are pretty, like young men, you met a few, all sort of, I'm cool and I'm hip, so going together. And they'd done some stuff, some good stuff. They'd done some good stuff, a little bit sort of, way young guys are. And they had to all, go and meet the Dalai Lama because he was presiding over something. And then was said every one of them, when they met him, they started tears just to be looked at and seen with that kind of held. Said they all came out like were soft and open-eyed and many of them weeping. What's that? That's when the resonance goes to the heart and you find yourself moved beyond reason, beyond your identity, beyond your hard shells, beyond your calculations, beyond your need to be right or wrong or better than the others or compete or get it figured out. Get beyond that, all that stuff. Which causes hard edges. Resonate. Opens. This is kind of why a lot of things really, why we chant. But even, perhaps take it a stage further. The suttas, I think it was a bit of Ananda, one of the Buddha's main disciples. He said the Tathagata, the Buddha, teaches 11 doors to the deathless, not just one, 11 doors to the deathless. And what are these? He says there are the 4 Brahmaviharas, the Appamano states, Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekkha. These are doors to the deathless. There are the 4 jhanas. There's the doors to the deathless. And there are 3 of the 4 immaterial spheres that you can move to or your mind can open to in 4th jhana. The 4th one is just too subtle. So these are doors. And you might say, they're not the deathless, but they're doors to it. And basically the deal is, when you get to the door, right, then it's the wisdom aspect that sees into the nature of where your citta's at that time and sees this as just conditions, forces, energies, they're impermanent, they're not self, and releases. There's a release from that. The citta just, then you're through the door, or something's through the door, or the door disappears. I mean, I'm sure the metaphors are difficult, but just that this is beyond death, beyond that immense catastrophe that we imagine when the hard stuff cracks up, when the certainties go, when the walls, the sense spheres break down, when the rational thinking mind is no longer rational, when time and place and the future no longer exist, the things that have held us, and held us in a rather uncomfortable grip. But we were in it because we wanted to be held. So we took that, and then it cracks up, and then what happens? The citta is just disoriented, panic. Get some more. Called rebirth. Get another bunch of the same stuff, because it hasn't known itself. It hasn't dwelt inwardly in itself. And these jhanas and brahmaviharas are there to cause the citta to turn back into its radiant, suffusive nature, which is not the world of hard edges. The world of hard edges disappears in these modalities of mind. The world of time and place is irrelevant in these modalities of mind. The world of fixed views and opinions is just dross in these modalities of mind, because it's something finer. And what do these two have in common? What is their similarity? You may not know, you may not have experienced this very much, but you must, as the Buddha says, if you've experienced fully the quality of loving kindness for the duration of one finger snap, then you've touched into jhana, the essence of it. 2 finger snaps is even better. Generally, you can make 3 before things start to go strange. Can you do that? Can you get 2 or 3 finger snaps worth of metta? I'm sure you can, not beyond. But rather than just, oh, he's a nice guy, or I owe it to so-and-so, or I should be nice, like I do it. A lump me does it to another lump you, because of I should do. It's another kind of lumpy strategy, isn't it? One is touched with the vulnerability of beings, one is touched by the sensitivity of beings, by the value of beings. Therefore, one's heart opens, almost like a reflex. Why should it not? If I'm not stuck on their appearance, if I'm not stuck on what I want to make out of them, if I'm not frightened of them, if I'm not carrying grudges, if I'm not comparing myself as to who's better, why should it not open? Why should there not be that sense of, oh, sentient being, just like me? Almost a reflex, the same thing that the disciples experienced when they saw the Buddha, the radiant mind, the resonant mind. As we see at this time, how important it is for people. Once you can't make contact with people, when you can't go and mingle and merge and look at each other and vibe, just how challenging it is to be that clamped, shut in, locked down. And of course, it's quite easy to perhaps regret and recognize that occasionally we do lock down when we don't need to. We lock down with fear. We lock down with judgment. We lock down with, he did this to me yesterday and I'm hanging on to that. And lock down with, I don't like the way you do this. Lock. And you are one of those and I'm one of these. This is my politics, it's your politics, bonk. Hard edges. This is my belief, that's your belief, hard edges. Called clinging. Right? This is lockdown. This is a psychological lockdown that people induct themselves into, with the feeling it will make me secure, because we tend to take lock as, well, it's nice and firm, I know where I am with a lock. Yeah? And then you don't need to lock to feel secure. You need to learn how to fly, float, ride. That's much more, doesn't crack. Yeah. And then the lockdown, the clung state, and the inability to allow feeling, perceptions to be sensed does cause people to crack up. And then it said, phrase in the sutras is the CITTA cracks. Crack your CITTA means you go crazy. That's what we're referring to. So if we contemplate and just get in touch with the free gift of goodwill, to also just to receive it, to be loved, to be seen in a benevolent way, and to allow yourself to be seen without being embarrassed or feeling you've got to pay something back or be good enough or what does he think of me? Just let it happen. And in our Dhamma practice, make these strong determinations to not abuse, not manipulate. It's so that some of these tendencies to lock in defense and in grasping can be firmly put aside. So there can be that resonance of goodwill and compassion. You pick that up when you get a feeling for that. It's much more likely that your own, or the difficulties that arise in your own mind, you'll be able to receive them in that room, in the metta room. It's called a vihara. Vihara means an abiding place, and karuna, compassion, is an abiding place. Could you, welcome your craziness into the compassion room? Could you welcome all your faults and weaknesses into the room of compassion? And sit right there, just sit there, just be with you in a minute, just sit down and just soak up the vibes. And we'll deal with who is right and wrong later, and we'll deal with the trial and the tribunals and the punishment later, but just sit there for the moment and soak up the compassion. And after a while, hey, there's no courtroom, there's no trial. You're not in that kind of situation. This really enjoying and treasuring that capacity that we all have. And essentially, this is what you see this word, which is not a common concept in rational material society. Suffuse, pervade the all-encompassing world with a heart of loving kindness. It means all the stuff that's around you, all that you're involved with. Just try to, make some attempts to not go into the grudge and resistance. Let it respect, be who it is, compassion. So the heart is not cramped, free from cramping, uplifted. And clearly, it's not always so easy. You just. But so, well, you can at least try try to see if you can get the equanimity room open. When people are just stubborn, ornery, cantankerous, could you at least maintain a sense of, well, I guess that's what that citta's doing, For sure, it's not easy. But then perhaps one should give attention to where these qualities can be fostered. So at least you're not infected. with the virus of rancor, bitterness. Jhana. Permeates. Term with jhana. Very similar expression. Saturates. Experiences a sense of uplift. The energy starts to become steady and smooth, uplifted, bright. One feels at ease with that. And then this is the jhana pervasion. So it says there's not one part of one's body that isn't saturated, drenched, permeated with the pleasure and happiness born of this practice. Disengagement from the sense world, entering the world of citta, using breathing to send energies through the entire form. All the four jhanas are embodied. Always body metaphors are used. The last one, the fourth one, as if a smooth white sheet is over the body. It's pure, smooth, featureless radiance, soft, very refined. But we start humbly. And you start by entering the right way and see what's within the range. It's like you pick up the song. See what's within the range. And but you have to tune in to something that has resonance in it. And for too long, we've taken these bodies to be dumb lumps of matter. And we've just opted into the physicality of it and mechanisms of it and deprived it of its intelligence or dumbed its intelligence down. We tend to become automatons, trained to operate like machines in that jerk, jump time manner. And then, end of the day, switch it off, dump it down in the bed, and don't get an alarm clock next to it. Alarm clock goes off, fling it out, throw some coffee down it, get it out the door. You might do that with a car. And then you can just slap it around a bit if it starts to give you problems, or dose it with something or the other, throw some pills down it or dose it with something. And it kind of works. Other people wouldn't do it at all, but this is a pretty sad state of affairs. When there's this possibility of something more luminous and radiant that heals the energies of the body. And this is not just like a spa, but this is crucial because it's based upon those tight, contracted, numb energies that the emotions start rising up. If you're in a tight state, you're going to be pretty irritable. If you're in a contracted state, you're going to get pretty depressed. If your body's open, feels comfortable, you're going to feel joyful with no particular reason. The Buddha's giving, I must have said this probably several times, the sequence in which the Buddha describes, saying, when you have recollecting virtue, then freedom from this cramping regret, which causes one to sort of stumble. And freedom from regret, your heart feels gladdened. When there's gladness in the heart, your body starts to feel a bit more relaxed. Relaxed, you start to feel, mind starts to feel happy. And when it says the happy mind is samadhied, it is collected. It gathers into its own happiness and sits there. This is samadhi. And then from this, then you can see clearly. Yatha bhutang jnana dassana. You can see how things have become the way they are. You see, that leads to that. And it's no judgment, it's no criticism, it's just that. When there's clinging, there's that. When there's craving, there's clinging. Yeah? When there's attachment, there's that. It's that. There's no personal issue around this. This is just the system. Yeah? And if you don't crave, the clinging falls away. Clinging falls away. The sense of being an encased human being drops away. The sense of being an encased human being stuck inside a body in a piece of geography, that falls away. Then the citta's not bowed down with aging, sickness, and death. Yeah, I mean, this materiality certainly comes to it wears out. Does the citta have to go with that? Yeah, and the Buddha's saying, no, it doesn't have to. And what was he doing in his last days? The Buddha, 80 years old, stumbling around, but making his way very painfully. Yeah, in some extremely sapping illness, intestinal illness, creeping along slowly, broken down. He said, my body's just like an old, broken down old cart, just about stuck together with leather thongs holding it together. You know, but kept going for the welfare of others. And then he thought, I have taught, I have completed. Time to put it to rest. Lies down under the tree. Any questions? Last moments when he can have a rational mind, ask for questions. I mean, the man just didn't hold back. You can't get better than that, can you? So he's going out with that. He's tuned into that in his deathbed. I mean, no, not me. No. He's tuned into that because he's learned that's where he lives. And then it says, then he goes out and he says, what's happening? And this one of his arahants who can tune into other people's stuff says, oh, he's now entering first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, da, 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 da. He's coming back again, fourth jhana. There he goes. Yeah. He's let it slipped out. He's let it go. Yeah. But the idea is sitting there doing jhana like some intense yogi, kind of cramping over, focusing on the end of his... No. He's lying down sick on a deathbed. So this is not about getting rigid and hard. This is about entering a resonant experience. He's done so many times. His citta now does it by reflex. He knows where to go into the resonances, relinquish the attachment, and then you go out. You go out free. So this is not just a kind of dumbing down to get concentrated idea. This is tuning in to some fundamental wavelengths, fundamental nature of reality. Reality is energetic, it's vibrant, and we can sense that. See where you pick it up. You pick it up in a sound, in chanting, in loving kindness. Even in the moment when you get something, your mind goes, oh, and a shimmer. And, the process of meditation is to turn to that quality, that shimmering, that resonance, that tune. Touch it again and listen. Touch it light. Don't push it too hard, because you'll put your thumbprint on it. Just touch it lightly and listen. Touch it lightly and listen. You get it. Listen with your citta. Listen with your faith, your openness. Doors of the deathless are open for those who can listen. Bring forth your faith, not your planning mind. Know your histories. Tune in, pick up that. And this is then the mind will start to reverberate in that. And you build up kind of like a feedback loop of resonance, which becomes warm, steady, And it's a place your citta can settle in. And this is the basis for insight, for deliverance. Because when the citta is then properly presented in its open nature, then its wisdom faculty, its clarity, is no longer being encumbered with all these clunky stuff going on, and shrouds and defense strategies and grasping. As this stuff's out of the way, oh look, that's there. And through this web, there's the space. And this web of energies, there's this, which is now cool and open, there's the space. And then mind moving through that. No, our practice is often dealing with these lumps, isn't it? These clunky bits of regret and tangled bits and tight bits. But once you've begun to get a sense of what reality is, then you realize that you can't relate to this like slug it, push it out of the way, slap some of that on it. You've got to start vibing it, resonating with it. What's needed here? What's needed? What's the room? What's the abode to place this piece of hurt feeling, this piece of compacted fear, this piece of self-criticism, this sense of regret, this worry? Where do I put it? How do I resonate through that so that formations of the mind can begin to soften and yield? Just like, if you have a thorn in your foot, most likely you probably put in warm water, soften the tissues, then the thorn will drop out. And so this is our, a process of softening, so that some of these pieces of grit and pieces of glass and shards that have been there for a decade can start to either drop out or you can easily prise them out. But if the mind is still too tight, every time you go in, it tightens up some more. So you've got to get that sense of what will soften, loosen, open up, so that the possibility to release this stuck stuff. Oh well. So practice wisely, tune in, and find, realize the true nature, and the false stuff will fall away. So offer this for your reflection this evening.